G'day, Chief. Welcome to the Inner Chief podcast and this special episode, which we call The Mini Chief. These are short, sharp highlights from our fabulous CEO guests, where you get a 5 to 10 minute snapshot of the highlights from their episode. Righto, Chief. Without further ado, here is the Mini Chief episode for this week with Perry Marshall, sales and marketing guru.
Let's talk a bit about the 80-20 rule because, I mean, you've written a whole book around 80-20 marketing and the Pareto principle. Yep. Let's, first of all, can you explain it in your own words what the 80-20 principle rule is? And a quick frame around this is just about every client I've ever worked with doesn't have enough time or can't be productive. They've got too many things on. So let's talk Pareto principle and in your own words, what it means. And then I want to talk a bit about what you say when you say it's fractal as well.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying everybody is mistaken on this. There is actually lots of time. We are awash in time. We have an abundance of time. It's just a matter of perspective. And 80-20 really addresses this, okay? So I would imagine that the majority of people listening have heard that 20% of the people have 80% of the wealth and 80% of the people have 20% of the wealth. And that's the Pareto principle. And it's true across pretty much all countries. And like that is what most people understand to be 80-20. And then, you know, if you've had some sales background or something, you might also know that 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers and the other 20% of your sales come from the 80%. Okay, so that's all true, but that's kind of like saying, well, a guitar has 6 strings and a hole in it. And like, yeah, I understand guitar. Well, that doesn't mean you can play it, right? Oh, drums, yeah. Yeah, you got these round things and you get these sticks, right? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Well, no, wait a second. You ever seen a good drummer? You ever seen a good guitar player? Okay, 80-20 is like that. It is deceptively simple. It's actually very deep, okay? So what's the deeper part of it? So the deeper part of 80-20 is, first of all, it's not just this business rule of thumb or economic rule of thumb. It is a law of cause and effect vastly across nature. It is everywhere. In fact, you have confronted 80-20 every single day of your life. All of the arguments when they have elections between the conservatives and the liberals about, distribute the wealth, or are we going to tax the rich, or are we going to reduce taxes and let business flourish? Those are 80-20 arguments, okay? And 80-20 is the size of craters on the moon, and it's the dirt on your carpet. 80% of the dirt is on 20% of the carpet, okay? Because 80% of the traffic is on 20% of the carpet and 20% of the roads. It is everywhere. It's in all your spreadsheets. It's in your advertising accounts. It's in your checkbook. Okay? It's the apps in your phone. Like 20% of the apps get 80% of the time on your phone. Okay? So it's all over the place. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is it's fractal, which means a pattern inside a pattern inside a pattern inside a pattern. Okay. So 80% of the people own 20% of the real estate, and 20% of the people own 80% of the real estate. But guess what? 20% of the 20% own 80% of the 80%. And 20% of the 20% of the 20% own 80 of the 80 of the 80. So I'm not asking you guys to do math in your head. If you do that math, 1% of the people own 50% of the real estate. And one person, Jeff Bezos, is worth $150 billion. That kind of inequality is programmed into the universe. Okay? So it applies to time. 1% of your time produces 50% of all your productivity. Now, when you suddenly become aware of that, so let me slow down and unpack that. Let's say you're a salesperson on straight commission. Half your income was earned in less than 4 days last year.
And I reckon that would play out.
It does play out.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a week, but it might be 2 days. Okay. Sure. It's like most of your income came from one or like a very, very is like one deal. Okay. Now, if you look at 80-20, what it means is that the productive part is 16 times more effective than the unproductive part. Okay, so the 20% who have 80% of the wealth, person for person, they have 16 times more money than the 80% who have 20% of the wealth. It's built right into the math. Okay, so there's an enormous amount of inequality, and it's built into the laws of the universe. And so what it means is you cannot change it. You can only harness it. You can't change the fact that 80% of your customers are only going to do 20% of the purchase orders. You can't change it. No, you can camp out on their doorstep, and you can sing Kumbaya, and you can send them brownies.
Well, I've got this career journey map, Perry, and it talks about how you go from professional to manager to general manager, or into your first, VP role, and then into an executive VP role or a CEO role, all the way to the very top, right? And every level, around about 80% of people fail to keep going. So
yes,
about 20% of people make it to manager. And then of the 100% of people that are manager, only about 20% of them become a general manager. And so it's the same, compounding effect or fractal pattern within a pattern. And as you play it up, it ends up being only about 1 in 1,000 people become a CEO. And so you look at all your competitors and you realize then how hard it is. But the challenging thing there is when you're talking about that is as you get more and more and more towards the 1% or the 0.1%, the people you're competing against are the top of the top. It's not you're not competing anymore against the 1,000 people on the populace. You're now only competing against the very, very, very top 10. So it gets more and more and more and more difficult as you go.
Chief, there you have it for this week with our mini Chief episode. For all our links and show notes, go to chiefmaker.com/362. Chief, one of the biggest challenges in all leadership roles is how to influence stakeholders. The difficult, the easy, the elusive, all sorts of stakeholders, board members, executive teams, clients, suppliers, the media, the community. And if you want the definitive guide on how to think about it, how to set yourself up and prepare for it, how to run through and map your stakeholders, and how to finally influence with integrity, go to chiefmaker.com/stakeholder for a fully editable PDF guide on mastering stakeholder influence. That's chiefmaker.com/stakeholder. And if you would like to stay in touch and hear all about some of the best resources you can find anywhere in the world to improve your performance at work, go to chiefmaker.com/subscribe. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the chiefs and gurus bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chiefs, as always, remember to stay